I've said it before and I'll say it again. When it comes to AI, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it looks like Toei Animation has finally decided to take its big step. Now, granted, Toei Animation as a studio, as a company, which is probably easily one of the biggest animation studios out there, or at least it has the biggest properties. They have some cash makers out there. They're not new to AI technology. They've been using it in the past for like backgrounds and whatnot. But here recently, with their big investment into an AI company and their recent financial report, we're kind of seeing that, yes, it's time for them to kind of make that big step. And I don't think it's going to be a detrimental step quite yet, but I do see that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be pretty uneasy about this whole change. I'm already seeing a lot of statements about AI One Piece or AI Piece. Everybody's already making the jokes because, yes, like I said before, Toei Animation has a lot of massive properties behind them. They're like some of the biggest shonens, the ones that have the biggest crowds out there. And yes, a lot of children's properties and whatnot that kind of are going to be able to facilitate this stuff very well. But yes, like I said, we have right here their financial results. And in their financial results, all the way down here on page 20, we're going to forget all this other stuff about them making money. We don't care about any of that stuff. We care about the stuff that gets people attention, which is AI. Going down here all the way down to page 20, we have their investment in Preferred Networks, Inc. Again, this is something they made an investment in here recently. If we look over here on their website for Preferred Network, they raised 5 billion yen in extension round. Total of 24 billion yen raised in its latest funding round. And right here, you can see some of the bigger companies that made this big investment into it, which includes Toei Animation. We also have Kodansha's in here as well, Tokyo Broadcast System as well, Mizuho Bank and whatnot. But the big question that a lot of people are going to probably have is, what is Preferred Networks? Again, this is a company that is doing a lot of technologies, including AI. And you'll see a lot of their stuff around on social media and whatnot. They're a company that makes software that, yes, can pretty much draw for you. If you don't know how to draw, see this over here on the right side, this is pretty much what somebody's drawing. On the left side is what the AI is making it into. It's taking essentially a rough draft of what somebody's drawing, and it's actually making it into something. This is not something they're going to be getting into with Toei Animation right now. We'll get into exactly what they're utilizing. What they're going to be more utilizing is things like the paint system here and whatnot, which is actually outlined in this whole thing right here. So let's actually read it. We've invested in Preferred Networks, Inc., a company with cutting-edge AI technology. With an eye of launching a joint venture, we will seek to co-develop new business opportunities and improve the efficiency and quality of our production, capitalizing on synergies between AI and animation production technologies. Again, this is where we're going to get very uneasy for a lot of people. What's going to happen to my One Piece? What's going to happen to my favorite show? Is it going to turn into AI slop? They've done a pretty good job of kind of laying out exactly what they're doing here. A lot of it's sort of what I was kind of expecting AI technology to use. Not necessarily something for creating something, but something to kind of assist in something. So we have on the left and the right here. We have on the left side is Preferred Networks. They're kind of laying out exactly what they do. The right side, they lay out what Toei Animation's doing. And then in the middle here, we have that collaboration between the two companies. On the left side, they have Preferred Technologies, top-level AI technology, competence in Japan, development of proprietary AI models, and dedicated hardware. Track record of tie-ups with major companies. I'm not sure exactly what that list of companies is. Again, technically over here on their actual funding here, you can see that they have a lot of tie-ins with several other companies. They have a track record they're kind of working with here. So anyways, how they're actually going to utilize this. So they bring them together, apply AI to various processes of animation production. And here we're going to zoom in here because this is way too small and I cannot get to a sense here. The first one is storyboarding. So let me explain how this is exactly going to be working, because some people out there that are watching this, I'm sorry for those that know, some people out there are not going to know exactly what this means. So for storyboardings, they're going to utilize AI. Use cases, AI used to generate simple layouts and shooting of the storyboards. This is probably one of the areas that I can see being very actually beneficial, because there's a lot of people that are mentally creative. They can kind of envision what they want, but they can't draw it. Yes, technically storyboards are supposed to be very rough sketches. Here's an example right here from One Piece using a storyboard. What the idea here is it's almost like making a manga of an anime. That's the funny thing in there. Like, we always joke a lot about whenever an anime is adapted from a manga, it's kind of like one of those, well, it's really easy because the manga is the storyboards. For animation production, a storyboard is essentially a layout of different shots to make out a scene. Because the person that's directing, the person that's doing the storyboarding, they have a vision of what they want, but they're not the animator. They're not the person drawing things. So right here with this example, we have the opening sequence here. First, it's a close-up shot of his swords, and then he grabs the sword. And then you see a close-up of his face. Then it shows an outer view of everybody in the crowd here, whoever's facing him. And then suddenly he slices and it's all white. And then suddenly you see a bunch of stuff cut up. That's the idea here, is it's laying out what they want the animators to actually put together. Then from that point, it'll go to typically the key animator, which the key animator will do the very beginning segment of that shot, which is going to be, again, this first shot of the blade. And then what I'm assuming this is one single shot. The last shot will probably be when his hand is actually on the actual sword. And then the in-betweeners will then draw it from there. Here's another example of the actual storyboards here. You have this initial shot with the enemy in front of him. Then suddenly it says right here that it's going to be a pan-up shot. So they actually have additional notes right here. They'll even sometimes have dialogue on the right side here or just comments. So it's basically telling the animators later on, he's going to be standing here. He's going to turn. The pan will be coming up. The visual will be panning up. Then suddenly you'll have a close-up of this person's face. He's going to be looking up. And then suddenly, I'm guessing this is a punch. And then suddenly he gets punched. That's the idea of the storyboards. And again, what I kind of envision them utilizing this for, again, is somebody that is not very good at drawing, can't draw this stuff. He can tell an AI, give me a close-up of this character's face. And then he can adjust it from that point. Okay, turn the face slightly right. And then the AI will automatically generate the next shot. It's not that these storyboards are never used in the finished product. It's just the storyboarder is telling the animators what they envision the scene will be. And so using an AI to generate a rough sketch of what that is going to be is actually really useful. And they can even add more detail into it. It's essentially putting a vision into paper. So I actually like the idea of using it for storyboarding, as long as it doesn't go any further than that. That's, of course, always the end result there. The next thing they're going to be using it on, coloring and color specifications. Use cases, AI used to specify colors and automatically correct colors. The second part is actually something that is very clever to use it for. And the idea of color correction for certain scenes or whatnot, that kind of stuff. It can sort of keep an eye on what they're doing and actually undo errors that humans might not actually see. That's actually using AI to fix a human mistake. I think that's actually a really good thing there. Outside of that, the coloring part is the iffy part. That's the iffy part. And we can get a little example here on Preferred Network's site where they're utilizing this technology. Now, preface this. This might not be exactly how they're going to implement this. It's just this is an example of what technology they have on Preferred Network site. What exactly they do with that technology, that's the other question mark. Anywho, so again, we have here different styles of coloring itself, some that are a lot more sharper. But this is kind of what I was expecting could be the utilization of that technology. And what this essentially does is in this program, they can essentially just mark areas within lines, mark it with a color, and then it's going to automatically fill it in. So as we see here, he marks it with red, and then suddenly over here, it's marked with red. And additionally, it's also including shading, which that's an important thing because you can't just mark the area and it's just a paint bucket pours into it. It's got to do a lot of shading processes. And so it's utilizing the AI technology to go, okay, this is probably a little kind of bend here. So we're going to make sure that we put a little bit of shading over there. This is one of the bigger areas that I can see AI being very useful for companies. Because again, we're not technically drawing. Currently, they're not really even having people color in things anymore. There's some very rare cases of animation where they still hand draw everything, they still hand color everything, they still cell shade and all that kind of stuff. But typically, with a lot of production in anime these days, they're using some sort of AI already. They're using software to fill in the gaps. They're using that to make it easier and quicker to color in area. And when you have all these different frames, they don't want people to sit there and have to do every single one of those. Yes, I agree with a lot of people out there that don't like the AI technology and that it's taking away jobs from people. Yes, I would prefer it to be a bunch of people that all have jobs that can paint in this stuff. It's just, unfortunately, like I said earlier, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so it's kind of that finding that middle area where it's not necessarily that everybody's losing their jobs, but that they use it to essentially assist people in their jobs. But yeah, that's basically the gist of this whole thing. It's just going to use this technology to kind of say, okay, this is the guideline that I want, give me a result, and then hopefully afterwards they're going to say, okay, that was a really bad render or whatever. But it's not as simple, again, as just a paint bucket into a circle. Moving on from there, we have in-betweens. This is the one that I have been for the longest time saying will eventually happen, and I think it's probably the area in which it would be best utilized as a massive time saver. And that's the idea of in-betweens. For those who don't know what in-between is, it is everywhere in between two different keys. And you have a key artist will come in and say, this is the starting point. She's way far away. This cut, it cuts over, and suddenly you see the character, and they're off in the distance, and they're coming towards the visual standpoint. And then they will give the last frame. This is where it's going to end. It's going to start here, and it's going to end here. That's the cut. what they're saying here is that the AI is going to know based on, okay, it looks like she's running, and it looks like she's close up right here. Let's animate her running towards the screen. That's the idea here. Now, I would hope that they don't utilize this drastic of an in-between, because there's a lot of things that can happen between these shots. There's a lot of movement, there's a lot of expression, there's a lot of stuff that can happen between these frames. And this is where I personally get very afraid of AI technology, because what animators do is they specify what they want to happen with the character before they get to the endpoint. Yes, it's easy to tell an AI, she's way far away, I want her close up, draw it. What an animator does is go, but I want her face to light up as she's running. But I want her to stumble a little bit before she gets there. I want to see how her leg kind of bows a little bit because she has a little bit of a quirk there. The animators, as they're animating it with a team behind them saying this is what we want, the vision, they're able to tell the animator who's doing the in-betweens, I want more expression right here. Just before she gets there, I want her to sniffle a little bit because she's a little emotional. Those are the little things that I think we're going to lose with technology like this. That said, nothing in here says Toei wants them to replace all their in-betweens with AI. If there's cases where there's nothing to express in between those 2 points, use AI. I don't know. It's a struggle. I honestly want to say it is a massive struggle even for me. I am of the mind that it's going to happen either way. I just hope it doesn't take away the creative inspiration that comes from an actual dedicated team that want to create something beautiful. And the last one they have is backgrounds. This is probably the one that we see actually the most of. It's already implemented in several works. I think What Studio did one use of it. Obviously, Twins Hinahima, that one happened. There's a lot of companies that are already utilizing AI to do backgrounds. It's already a thing. This has been going on for a long time. The idea here, and they're saying use cases, AI used to generate backgrounds from a photo. It's simple. They go out to an on-site area, they take a photo of something, they give it to an AI and say, make this in this style. Give it a little flair, use this color palette, use this kind of contrast, tell it exactly what kind of style you have here, and then it's going to form a background based on that. That looks animated. The simple uses of AI already is technically using filters. That's a type of AI. Using filters or some sort of generation of technology in order to transfer it to. And again, this is something that's already happened. Now, technically, I think with the case with Studio, when they used it for The Boy and the Dog or whatever that show was or that movie was, I think they specifically were telling it what to make, not necessarily giving it a photo. But using a photo to generate a background is very simple stuff. This is probably, I would say this is the least offensive, but that's sort of denying a lot of very, very talented background artists that have created some absolutely beautiful works. There's a lot of stuff in a lot of shows where it was jaw-dropping how beautiful the scene itself was. I mean, just for a quick example, Your Name. There's a lot of very breathtaking backgrounds and whatnot that are created by human hands that I don't think will ever be created by AI. Because again, AI is using information that it has been trained to use, and thus it doesn't necessarily create anything new. And to kind of lose that awe-inspiring background shots is kind of sucks. Yes, technically a lot of background artists are utilizing on-site photographs. They go to different locations, they take photos, they take it back to the studio, and they draw it. But again, similar to what we were talking about back here, it's not necessarily an aspect of utilizing it to create the thing, but using it and then adding their own artistic flair to it, which again, they technically could use here. They use the AI to, transfer the photo to a drawn background, and then from that point on, they can adjust it themselves. And I think that's sort of an important thing to point out here. It's not necessarily that they're saying that they are using these things in order to replace it. They're saying they're using it to assist. They want to use it to make production itself more efficient and increase their quality. Like I said before, the increased quality aspect is, like mentioned earlier, the idea of using it for color corrections, that kind of stuff. Things that technically a lot of companies are already using it for, but then improving their processes. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what they kind of went through there. Aside from that, in the financial report itself, they went into details about prospects for the future with what they kind of see the industry going into, increasing by 3 trillion yen. They have a lot of expectations going into 2023 for actual earnings that they can do. Again, pushing into more things like AI and whatnot. A lot of emphasis on the idea of trying to develop new brands or creating new IPs and whatnot, which I think is actually pretty cool. You don't want to rely too much on your current existing properties, but kind of expand outward from that. But it's interesting stuff, and it's an interesting time to be an anime fan, especially when it comes to AI and what it can kind of offer and the fears that it kind of creates. Like I've said before, my stance currently is that it's something that's not really an aspect of something that we can stop. Yeah, if they came to me and said, Andrew, you can make the decision now, I would say no, hire more animators. Hire more animators, pay them better, and leave all this stuff to hand-drawn. Like, I would love to go back to the days of hand-drawn animation. There's a beauty and an art to the original, like, hand-drawn, hand-painted cell work from back in the day. Like, if you go back to those older anime, just seeing the roughness of it and what sort, and it's almost like you see the blood, sweat, and tears literally on a frame if you pause it. And that stuff I eat it up. That stuff I absolutely love. But unfortunately, it's something that's not going to happen. But if they came to me and asked me, yes, I would say that. But unfortunately, that's not the case. There's two aspects of it. One is the idea of it's technology they know they have to invest into, otherwise they're going to be left behind. If they don't get into it now, somebody else will, and they're going to take over the market. For example, China is not going to stop AI technology use with animation. And if they blow up with that stuff and they start getting bigger and bigger, Japan gets left behind. There's an element of trying to jump into AI while it's still new. And I think the bigger thing is, and the hope is, that they utilize it in a way that will not be slop. More so, they'll utilize it in a way that assists the artist to create their vision, rather than use it to create the vision. That's the big thing there. Use it to assist the creation, not to create. And that's the big kind of thing that I think a lot of people are kind of scared about. That's what they're kind of scared about. And I think there is room to sort of have people still be present. I hope that they still utilize somebody to kind of be present, to give it the vision, and to assist it in that way, to still have a heart there of an animator, to still have a heart there of a creator. But either way, it's interesting. Let me know in the comments down below. What are you guys thinking? Are you scared for the future? Are you like, whatever, I'm not watching One Piece anymore? I actually seen quite a few people saying they're going to be protesting One Piece and whatnot. I don't know that it's going to make an effect. I don't think people are going to stop watching One Piece just because of this, but I guess it's nice to say that you're against it. But let me know in the comments down below. Are you scared? Are you mad? Let me know. But additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I've links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it. But until next time, take care.